The second story just happened a couple months ago. I live in the People's Republic of Maryland. All right. It's one of the most gun unfriendly states. In fact, I think California and New York might beat us by a little bit, but we are a gun unfriendly state. But for some reason, I don't know the guy. I don't know anything about the story. I just saw one day in the strip mall near my house, I happen to be near my post office, ammo store or the ammo box or whatever. He started a gun store in the state of Maryland. And I think he was open 4 or 5 months and then he went out of business. I mean, I doubt he talked to a single person. I doubt he understood. I imagine he liked the guns and he liked the ammo. So he opened up an ammo store and immediately went out of business. And I think what happened was maybe he had a 6-month lease or a 12-month lease, or maybe he abandoned his lease. And we'll talk about that nightmare someday too. But let's talk about leases for a minute. If you're going to open up space, you're going to make a personal legal commitment to a lease. Typically, it's a year with option years or a 3-year with option years. It really depends on how busy the landlord is and how premium the space is. If you sign a 3-year lease, you're saying, I'm going to make lease payments. You're going to make 36 lease payments whether you open the business or not, whether your business fails or not. Okay? If your business fails, you still have to make the lease payment. If you abandon the space, you still have to make the lease payment. Yeah, think about that. So if you open up a $5,000 a month lease option, that's $60K a year times 3. That's $180,000. You're saying I'm going to pay the landlord $180,000, and that's if they don't have escalation on it, which they probably will. All right. Your business fails month 3 or month 6. You still sitting on that lease. So that's why I don't like retail sales. All right. But beware of the risk of leases because it can really hurt you. And it can take your current situation and make it far worse because your start over plan signed a monster lease. So just be aware of that. Okay, so the third and last part of this story is, I don't know if you ever drive by a space. My wife and Dad do this all the time. You're driving along and you see a news store, okay? And we say to each other, start the clock. That bad boy's going to be out of business within a year, okay? Where I live, we have a brand new sports complex being built. It's the second one attempted. The first one failed miserably. Somebody spent probably $1 million building this youth sports complex. We don't have enough people to maintain that. Do you know how many monthly memberships you got to sell? So that's the third one. And I'm sure you've done it. You've driven by and go, what is that person thinking opening that store here? That's insane, right? You know, do we need a 12th nail salon? Do we need the 9th vape center? You know, I mean, just start the clock. These bad boys are going down. A chicken store, you know, right next to Popeyes. I mean, it just, who thought of that? So anyway, those are the 3 things I wanted to bring up as part of the story. The pool table story, the ammo store, and the holy crap, what is that person thinking when you drive by? And let's start the clock on that failure. Those are the 3. We're going to talk about why I brought these up now. All right, the reason I brought all that up is because we move into the expense conversation. I really want you to understand this concept. How many X do I need to sell to pay for Y? Okay? That's what these companies didn't do. How many pool tables do you have to sell to pay the lease? Okay? That's the example. How many boxes of 22 shells do you have to sell to pay the lease? All right? If you have a $5,000 a month lease and you're selling 22 ammo and you're making $2 a box, see what I'm saying? 2,500 boxes. All right? To sell 2,500 boxes a month out of a little store to make your lease payment. There's only 30 days in a month, right? You got to sell 100 boxes a day to make your lease payment. Now, how many boxes do you have to sell for your electricity and utility costs? All right. What's the margin, the post-sales tax margin on a box of 22, or a box of 5.56, or a box of 223, or a box of 12 gauge, or a 22 pistol, or a 357, or whatever you're selling? You can't use the sales price. All right? That's the other screw up. You cannot use your sales price. I'm not talking about gross revenue. I'm talking about net margin. All right? That's the other concept we've got to beat into our brains if you're not a business person, is you're always talking about net income or gross margin. All right? You're not talking about revenue. I mean, revenue is important and we got to talk about it, but you never plan to spend your gross revenue. All right? You spend your net income or your gross margin. All right? Don't get those mixed up. All right? Oh, I'm going to sell 5,000 boxes at $30 a box. That's a big number, but you're making $2 a box on it. That's different. All right? So you got to trickle everything down. Everything you sell, if it's your hour that you're billing for, or your lawn mow service, you're charging, $35 to mow a lawn. Okay, how many of those, once you've taken away the cost of maintaining your equipment, buying your equipment, the gas and oil, truck, trailer, how much are you really making on that? Now, if you own your truck outright and you own the trailer outright and you own the equipment outright, and it's a much different formula than if you have a truck payment, trailer payment or you got a lot of maintenance issues, okay? So I go back to it and say it again. How many of X do you have to sell to pay for Y? All right? How many pool tables do you have to sell to pay your rent? And then how many line items do you have, right? So that's the next thing you have to get to, is you have to get a spreadsheet up and list everything that you're going to spend money on. And you got to have that by month for a year. All right? You probably got 20 or 30 line items. It's not 100, it's not 500, but you got 20 things you're going to spend money on. And you got to know how much you're going to spend on it each month. All right? Maybe it doesn't all hit month one. All right? So you got to really think through your spend plan. All right? And this is where not knowing the answer completely kills you. All right? So you've got to think through what it takes to run this company. You got to decide when that cost is going to hit you to the month. And you got to understand the number you type into that spreadsheet. You can't just ballpark it. You can't say, well, my tractor payment will be X. No, you got to go price the tractor, used or new, or whatever it is, right? And then, how are you going to own it outright and do you have the startup cash to do that? Right? This is where that startup cash starts to factor in. How much startup do you can? Because you don't want to spend it all. You'll need some for operations. Okay? And the image I want you to have in your head now is 13 columns, 14 really, the list of item names, and then each month, 12 months out in front of you, and then the annual total column, right? 14 columns. Every line, every expense has its own line, and you better understand every number that goes in that plan. You should do the exact same thing for your revenue, by the way, but that's much harder. All right? Fill is my first sale. Maybe that's all you know, right? What does your revenue stream look like? Because your revenue stream by month, your expenses by month, then tells you at the bottom, simple math, revenue minus expenses gives you margin. Okay? I'm going to stop there for a minute. So you now have a financial plan. It may take you 6 months to put this thing together. Okay? This is not a plan. This is a financial plan. This is not an execution plan. Okay? This is you getting your shit together financially. This is you getting an understanding of the revenue by month and why you're typing that number in. Right? So if you type in oil change and you are going to do 2 oil changes a day, 10 a week, 40 a month, and plan that revenue stream out, where'd you get the 10? Where'd you get the 2? All right? That's what I mean about it. You have to understand every number you typed in. Well, I see this guy over here. He does 10 a day. I'm going to assume I get 2 a day. Ooh, that's a big assumption, man. How are you going to get 2 people a day to come into your shop? Maybe it's 2 a week for a while. Maybe it's 1 a week. I don't know. Underestimate. Okay? Underestimate your revenue and overestimate your expenses. All right? On purpose. I made my guys, I used to say, piss me off the first month of the year and delight me every time you update me. All right? We did planning in the beginning of September for the following year. I made my guys do 12 months of next year planned this September. In October, we refined it. In November, we finalized it, and their financial goals were put up for next year, finalized by December 1st. You've got to think out way ahead because you're going to be wrong, right? So if you underestimate your income and overestimate your expenses, it will be a depressing thing to look at the first time you do it. But then every month, you probably will overachieve your income and underachieve your expenses, and you'll feel better about your plan. If you do it the other way around, if you maximize your revenue and minimize your expenses, you're going to go, wow, my plan looks pretty good, and you'll miss it every month. And I teach my guys, it's soul crushing to miss your revenue goals every single month. It's soul crushing to realize you're spending more money than you thought you would every single month. It crushes your soul. It crushes your drive. So be careful of that. So remember, how many of X do I have to sell to pay for Y? What are my expenses planned out by month? What's my income planned out by month? Knowing why you type in every single number you type in. And what does your margin look like? What's the bottom line of your company look like? Out 12 months. It's tough. It is really tough. And sometimes you're going to be guessing. But no, I'm typing this number in and it's a guess. Maybe highlight it in red and do some research on it. Now you're ready to plan. That may be the most demoralizing thing I've said to you now. You've done all this work. Your why, your what. How many of X do you gotta sell to pay for Y? You have a list of services or products you're going to provide, and by month, how many you think you're going to sell at what price. You've got all your expenses laid out, and you kind of know why you've put those numbers in and they're laid out. You've put some thought into when those revenue streams are going to start. You've put some thought into when the expenses are going to hit. You have a general sense now of the financial performance of the company, but you also have built yourself the start of your plan. We have to now convert this financial plan into a physical action plan that you now have to go execute. All right? And that's the last phase of part 3. Converting all this thought process and all this kind of financial modeling into a set of actions. They have to be specific. They have to be related to each line item. They have to have dates associated with them. You have to know in what order they need to be done. And now you can start to list the actual action items that you have to start tomorrow to make this plan work. So sometimes when we do action item planning, people get buried in, well, what software do I use? What do I use? Gantt charts? Do I use critical path analysis? Maybe this is all gobbledygook to you, but a lot of people get stuck on it, and I recommend dumping all of it. I would use, like I always tell you, use a spiral bound notebook and a damn pen. All right? And then type it into something. Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, Google Docs, I don't care. All right? I don't care. I care that it's reproducible, printable, pen and inkable, changeable, savable. All right? I don't care what you use. I use Excel. I use Excel and Word. All right? I'm an old man. I'm a Microsoft guy. I've been using these products for 40 years. I mean, I'm a wizard with these things. I can use PowerPoint, Excel, and Word as good as anybody. So that's what I use. I use Outlook for my calendar. I mean, I can get away with saying that I'm almost 60. I'm not a Google Docs guy. I don't care if you are or not. What I want from you is for every item on your revenue list is the action plan that has to happen before that revenue can come in the door. And if you're going to offer oil changes, there's some things you have to do to be ready for that. I don't know what they are. Do you have the right tool set? Do you have the space? Do you have the lift? Do you have the jack stands? Are you going to do it on your back? I don't care, but you've got to know what that plan is. And if you're going to go beyond oil changes, if you're going to go to diff services or tranny services, wow, I mean, I don't even know how you would do that. All right, but you do. All right, using the lawn service, if you're going to offer lawn cutting and leaf removal, do you have the mowers? Do you have the gas cans? Do you have the trailer? I mean, so these are the things you have to line into the plan to that first one. And then if you want to expand, you got to go get chemical licenses, state licenses, county licenses to do those things. And they take a year, by the way. So you don't tell me you're going to start chem services 3 months in unless you've done all your research and you know how you got a 90-day plan to offer that. So be careful. Irrigation service is another one, right? So what would you need to do to get your irrigation service line item up and running? I'm making this up, guys, okay? But every single line item should have an action plan associated with it. Every expense probably does too. Do you have a business license? Do you have your tax accounts set up? Do you have an accounting system? Do you have your bookkeeping ready? It could be easy. Go buy cookbooks and do it yourself. That's what I did for quite a while, right? Do you have an attorney that can help with setting up your LLC? Do you want to set it up in the state you're running it in, or do you want to set it up as a foreign LLC and incorporate it out of Delaware, which is what I do, but that doesn't make it right for you. And then why, right? You have somebody legally helping you with these answers. So there's corporate structure, there's tax structure, tax payment accounts, you got to file, right? All these things are action items. So the action items to get up and running, to get your revenue inbound, the action items that you do to get your expenses handled, and then your operating action items. I can't go through them for you. I can't list them for you. I can give you a few examples like I've just been doing, but you need to convert this financial plan to day-by-day actions. You need to know in what order they need to be done and how long you think they're going to take, and they're going to roll out kind of like your financial plan does. Guys, I don't know what else to tell you. I think we're going to end it here. It's probably a fairly long video. I don't know if this helps you or not. I know the one thing it might frustrate you on is it's not doing it for you. I've told you before, I'll say it again, there's no silver bullet. This is not easy. It's relatively simple, but it is not easy. It takes real commitment. It takes hours a day, every day, most likely 7 days a week, most likely every day of the year. And a lot of people just don't have it in them to do it. Ask me questions, push back. How's this stuff landing? If anybody's actually going to try this, let me know. And guys, that's it. I think we're going to wrap it up. I'm going to shut up. I'm going to put all these pieces together and get part 3 of our start over plan up and online. Talk to you later, guys.